Hey everyone, and happy holiday season. I'm your host, Trevor Burnett, back for another masterclass. Last one of the year, actually. So it wouldn't be holiday season if I wasn't a little under the weather, so apologies in advance if I have to go on mute every once in a while for a sneezing fit or anything like that, or watery eyes. But today, I'm really excited about the content that we have to finish out 2025. So as you may have seen, as you registered on the LinkedIn site, we're AI. It's a great topic. Yeah, I was just at AWS reInvent last week, and I think every single booth had to mention AI in some way. Otherwise, they weren't allowed in the door. But AI is only as strong as the context behind it. And so this episode of Masterclass explores why ecosystem data has become one of the most important inputs of AI-powered partner go-to-market strategies. So I've brought along Crossbeam CEO and AI video creation master, Bob Moore. And so he's going to help break down how account mapping has evolved into a strategic data set and how it fits into the partner tech stack, and how insights are used to or cross-sell, reseller routes, and broader revenue motions. And I suppose I need to bring Bob in here if I can click the right buttons. There we go. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Trevor. How's it going? Good to be here.
Very good. So yeah, let's jump right into it. I know you have a couple of slides to kind of guide us along our conversation, but you know, it really has been interesting to see how fast everything's evolving. You know, every CEO, every leader is talking about AI and how to best leverage it, but everybody kind of talks about an AI bubble, but I don't think we're there yet. There's so much more to really take advantage of, but you have to do it the right way, right? Just doing AI for the sake of AI probably isn't going to be the best strategy. So you really have to apply it in the right ways, find the right strengths, and how it can benefit you and your business, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think there's always that question of some people feel like AI is still too early. Some people feel like they're late to AI and they missed the boat. And I think the important thing to remember is that AI is not a thing that you are either in or you're not in. It is a transformation that we're going through. And it's kind of bringing about a new operating system for the way human beings experience life. So it's hitting, we all talk about the B2B world, and more specifically the go-to-market world, and more specifically the partnerships world. But the fact that it's touching us is not because we're special. It's because there is kind of this chain of impact that happens as AI, starting at the most fundamental kind of product and engineering construct levels, it's rippling its way out in these big waves to impact the way that work gets done and the way that the jobs to be done inside of an organization change. So, for people that feel like they're late to AI, looking around at all these, fastest companies to 100 million in revenue that ever existed that are popping up, the one theme in those companies is that they are by and large sitting at the product design and engineering level and at the creative level to a certain extent. And there has been this extremely large wave in kind of the adjustments of productivity expectations and the way that work is done in that world that is reaching a point of very, very rapid maturity and widespread adoption. And frankly, it's super cool and transformational. I think the wave that we are starting to feel now is the go-to-market wave. And I do think it is actually still a little early. And there's really only a couple of companies that you can point to that are of material scale with undeniable kind of product traction and adoption and active usage. I think of companies like Glean when I think about this, right? This is like businesses that have large scale enterprise deployments that seem to actually be working. And this is a really big piece of it. So as I go into my slides here, my overarching point is, if you're worried that you're late, you're not. If you're worried that you're early, you're wrong. And I think that there's a moment that we are in here where by the time you feel like you're up to speed and running at the same speed as the market, you may realize that it's already in front of you. And this is the perfect time to be investing time and energy in this subject. So I'm going to make it relevant for the universe of go-to-market with kind of some special partnership and ecosystem pixie dust on it. But the reality is that regardless of what your role is, what your seniority is, this is kind of a foundational transformation in the way that your work is going to be getting done a year from now. And that means it's worth spending time on. It's worth investing this energy on. And this is the moment to do it in. So, so let's dig in because I think it's couldn't be a more important topic for this moment in time.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the epitome of work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I think it is truly that. There is and you know what's funny? It's like I've always been a big fan of like work smarter and harder. I think the interesting thing here is your outputs will change in a positive way, even if you work dumber and slower. But
as long as you're working somewhere,
it's not human nature to work dumber and slower, right? Like what's interesting about the AI stuff is that not only does it do a lot of the stuff that is the status quo today that humans do relatively well, it cracks open an entire new universe of the very nature of what can be done. And if you really let it light up your brain and kind of lean into what's possible, the skills that you can acquire and kind of the outputs that you can create as an individual have broadened really, really, really significantly, and kind of allowed you to go into these other domains where you may not have as deep technical or non-technical expertise or training and just be a lot more prolific in your outputs. So the weird artifact of AI is like what I've found it's done for myself personally is I am definitely working harder because there's more that I am confident that I can accomplish. And frankly, it's just more fun because what I'm able to use AI for is like automating out a lot of what would have been the most grueling, repetitive, painful, otherwise unsatisfying tasks, right? And being able to use it to help me create automations and intelligently craft, the pieces that need to be plugged in. I'm actually busier than I've ever been and also having more fun doing my job than I've probably had in 2 to 3 years, if I'm being honest about it. So it is this very, very interesting thing. But regardless of where you are on that 2x2 matrix of like, are you working harder or are you working smarter or both or neither? I think the third dimension there is like, what are the outputs? Like, what's the rate at which productivity yields from that body of work? And that is all up and to the right and positive, regardless of what quadrant you're in. It's just a question of how accelerated it really is and the domains in which it happens. So anyway, I'm talking in broad strokes here about the nature of work in general. I want to spend a little bit of time on partnerships, on account mapping, on the way in which this becomes really critical for AI. So one thing that we know, and that Trevor, you stated really clearly in your intro there, is using AI in your go-to-market strategy. This is not a differentiator anymore. It is very much table stakes. And what is setting companies apart is no longer the fact that they employ AI at all or put it to use inside their systems. This is becoming less and less of an edge. What is becoming an edge is what your AI knows and the context that you can inject or infuse into the way in which the AI, A, makes decisions, B, crafts content, C, handles complex processes, and ultimately guides you in doing that work or does that work on your behalf. So the big question ends up becoming, what does your AI know, right? And if you just start asking questions of a random context-free instance of ChatGPT, it might actually draft a pretty darn good cold email for you to send to somebody. But hey, if you can then connect that to your CRM system, it might be able to draft that email in a way that's contextually aware of what's going on in the deal you're trying to win or the account you're trying to reach out to. Then maybe if you connect something like Impartner or data from the PRM universe, it might know about the context around your partner ecosystem and the ways in which partners can help and what leads have been registered and kind of how to actually focus on a partner strategy or angle for that outreach. If you plug in something like Crossbeam, you start getting into this realm of now you know who to reach out to in the first place. And who are those leads that haven't been registered yet? What does the generation of net new market activity look like? And what is the angle that you can take on pursuing those wins and generating that market share that becomes more powerful? And you add all these things up and it becomes really profound, right? Because what you have there then is this really robust combination of all these different classes of data. There's this classic idea of first-party data and third-party data that most people are familiar with. First party data is your stuff. I would consider CRM data, PRM data kind of lives a little bit in that realm. It's like stuff that you own and that you know, and maybe you got because other people told you or reported it to you, but ultimately it's kind of captured by you and you just need to put it to use. And it's very, very proprietary, but it's your stuff that you know. So it's limited in its scope. Then there's third-party data, which we all know. You can buy this stuff in a lot of places these days. Clay is a great partner of ours that's doing a fantastic job kind of running at the front of that space or what it has become. But it's information that you can buy. It's information you can observe from the outside looking in, or that can be aggregated and kind of sold back to you. It's great. It's really useful. It's actionable. It completes the picture. It tells you who those contacts are, who those emails are, how many employees that company has. But it's not proprietary. It's commodity. Like your neighbor or your competitor can pay the same amount of money to the same vendor and buy the same exact data. So there comes a point where the differentiation from it in the context of AI becomes not that meaningful. But then you get this interesting class of data, which is second party data. And this is what you get out of account mapping. Second party data is basically things that your partners are willing to tell you and nobody else. So you get the benefits of first party data because it's proprietary. No one else has the partner ecosystem you have. So the aggregation of all that knowledge from all your partners is yours and yours exclusively. And it is kind of profoundly differentiated in that way. But it's also actionable because they know stuff you don't in your first party data, right? It's bigger than your first party data because it's kind of the sum of all of the Venn diagrams that exist between you and all your partners in the market that you want to go after. So you get this really beautiful wedge where the account mapping data is actionable and proprietary, incredibly valuable on its own, even more valuable when you combine it with the first party data from something like Impartner, even more powerful when you combine it with the third party data from something like Clay, and you get into a place where you've got this complete picture on accounts. And this is what your AI wants, and this is what your AI needs, right? So that account mapping data at its core, really, this data asset is this Venn diagram between what do you know about your customers, about the open opportunities you're actively selling to, about the prospects that you wish you were selling to, but you're not, and how does that intersect with the customers, opportunities, and prospects of each one of your partners? What are those overlaps? How many accounts are you both wishing you could sell to right now? How many are you both actively selling to? How many do you both actively have as customers? And maybe more excitingly, who do you wish you could sell to that's already a customer of your partner? This is the knowledge that you get out of account mapping data. Sometimes when I talk to sales leaders, I refer to it like, imagine if your sales reps had kind of a peephole they could look through in their CRM and see what's in the CRMs of all your partners about that account that they're trying to win or they're trying to crack. That is what this data asset is. And that is why it is so actionable and powerful and scales so well as your partner ecosystem thrives. For humans, it's great. This is my pitch for humans. Imagine what's possible for agents, because in a world of AI, you've got to remember this data asset changes every single day. If you have 100 partners that you're account mapping with, every day somebody's going to close a new customer. Somebody's going to open a bunch of new opportunities. Some opportunities are going to change stages and convert. Some opportunities are going to be lost. The thing that AI can do that humans have not been able to in the universe of account mapping and Crossbeam is keep track of all that stuff in real time and kind of drink from the fire hose of all of the movements that are happening among all of the accounts, among all of your ecosystem. And that data asset, which is no longer stateful, but instead like a time series of data, becomes this really, really powerful thing that can kind of trigger AI behaviors and also allow AI to detect patterns and make recommendations and just be smarter in how it operates. Very, very, very powerful stuff. And so in unlocking that, I wrote a book last year called Ecosystem-Led Growth. If you don't have a copy, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM. I'm happy to get you on. The book kind of walked through the process for translating this account mapping data into playbooks for growing your company. And this is not just partnership playbooks. This is go-to-market playbooks. This is how the partner org and the partner ecosystem becomes leverage and becomes this essential piece of how the go-to-market organization, your SDRs, your sales reps, your customer success teams are all leaning on the data that's coming out of the ecosystem and the context that's coming out of the ecosystem to do their jobs better. And when you look at it through that lens, you start to realize there's a lot that you can do, from lead gen to qualifying accounts, to assigning territories, to forecasting your closes, to prosecuting accounts better that are in flow and trying to close, all the way to expanding the accounts that you've got. I could and I have spent hours on each one of these chunks of this funnel, but I show this here just to show that this thing is bigger than partner stuff. This is core company strategy, and that's really what the ecosystem-led growth book was designed to do, is kind of elevate that conversation to make these partner teams this essential rock star of the data story around how go-to-market teams move forward. And in the AI era, the data story is the whole story. And that's, where it kind of leaves us here, and where we've gotten to with Crossbeam and with the account mapping data. And Crossbeam, by the way, if you don't know, we are the account mapping platform. Nearly 40,000 companies use our platform, including something like 90% of the large publicly traded SaaS companies. We are the platform through which this account mapping happens in a secure and privacy compliant and extremely efficient and effective way. We've become the de facto platform for that. So if your company wants to get that data out and start actioning on it, we become basically the data provider for that. And we've got all kinds of great widgets and UIs and ways that humans can consume this data in different environments. But what we're seeing now is a lot of momentum around agents consuming this data. And this is what you see here. So last month, we released the Crossbeam MCP server. This is being used in production by about a dozen of our big enterprise clients right now, and it is very cool. It's basically their own internal AI agents and or people using our plugin to Claude from Anthropic. And very soon we'll have a OpenAI ChatGPT plugin as well that's live, where you can actually ask these agents, either your internal ones or the big open framework ones, stuff about what's going on in your account mapping data inside of your Crossbeam instance in your Crossbeam ecosystem. And then we've got our own agents that run on top of that same data to basically do some of that work for you and create these new classes of alerts and data types called ecosystem signals, which are basically like, buying signals on steroids. They're identifying these changes that are going on within your ecosystem data and using things like webhooks to basically trigger notifications and alerts based on the conditions that you set up to potentially cause your agents to go act and do something, right? So we have plugins to systems like N8N and systems like Zapier to allow these signals to actually be kind of these triggering events that then allow you to take action. And this is where it's going. And what you're looking at here is like the picks and shovels. This is just the guts of how the data moves. The applications of this stuff are really profound. And we're starting to see it, under NDA behind closed walls in a lot of really fascinating companies. And what you're going to see from us in all of 2026 is the stories about, how people are using this and bringing it to life. But this is the future that we're looking at here. So
super exciting. So just real fast, for those that may not be aware, what's MCP, right? That's a special type of
totally
bringing together, right? So you're combining different knowledge bases essentially to train your AI.
Yeah, so MCP is short for Model Context Protocol, and it is really a protocol that was introduced by Anthropic, which makes Claude, and it's one of the leading kind of like model creators and providers, as a means by which a instance of an LLM can gain context from a third-party data source. So you can MCP is really just like a dressing up of APIs. And I think most companies that have gone to build an MCP server have spent like a day on the MCP server and a month making their APIs better, because it's a way for, like, it's important to know here, like, you're not retraining models with this. You're not like building your own training data set and buying a bunch of GPUs and like actually training and weighting models. What you are doing is allowing the model, which already exists, like your standard issue ChatGPT, when you open it up, to go and get the information that it needs, in the same way that ChatGPT or Claude will go query the internet to answer some of your questions when it's relevant. Imagine if it could also go query Crossbeam or go query Impartner or go query Clay, because it knows that those services exist, and it knows that some data it just doesn't have in its brain because it's inside of a walled garden, or it's behind a closed wall, or it's in a system that is protected and only you can access it. This is a way for you to give those agents the ability to go access that stuff, and for it to basically go talk to those services and get the data out that it needs, without needing to stand up a really complicated instantiation of like API authentication and paginating through a bunch of result pages that come out of the APIs to find what it needs. Like, it's kind of like a middleware layer that allows these sessions to really intelligently query data that's inside of walled gardens. So it's APIs for the AI era is probably the right way to think about it.
Yeah. And I think that's why you're saying you actually worked harder than you ever before. There's so many things to learn around AI
Yeah.
and how to make it smarter. I always try to relate it to things that I understand. Like, okay, so MCP is basically being able to add more books to my library, right? And
Mhm.
it's still proprietary information. You're not just opening it up to, like you said, the OpenAI public area. You're training it specifically on the right information you want it to say. So you're not just going and opening Pandora's box. You're not losing your security.
Yeah.
You're going, okay, I want it to connect to this specific instance of Crossbeam of my data. I don't want it to connect to competitor information or anything like that. So you're keeping the security while widening the scope of what your LLM can learn.
Yeah, I think that's right. And this is where it gets really great that we can stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to existing SaaS platforms that have figured out the nitty gritty of like who's allowed to see what when, right? There is this kind of harmony that I think is very different in the wave of go-to-market enablement with AI, where there's going to be the SaaS companies that make it and the SaaS companies that don't. And look, nobody's a SaaS company anymore. You go to all their websites and they're all AI companies. But I think there's this really, really powerful opportunity where part of what's hard about all this is permissions and security and access and what's a system of record and trust and kind of the ability to materialize and have data flow to the right places at the right time. And those things all matter still in a world where everybody is assisted by an agent. Those things all matter still in a world where agents are just doing the jobs, because you can't trust the agents themselves, right? Like we have plenty of evidence of that. I'm sitting here in Blood Code, like looking very closely as it, has one too many permissions on this repo that I've got it working in, and like I don't trust it much farther than I can supervise it. But man, is it speeding me up? And I think in that way, I don't want it to have the ability to delete my whole hard drive, and I make sure that it doesn't. Some people do, and they lose their hard drives. So the trick is like, how can we get 100x productivity within these boundaries and these constraints that need to exist in order for us to operate with the levels of security and trust and availability and reliability that is expected and necessary at an enterprise scale, which is very different than at a consumer scale, where I think a lot of these fastest growing companies ever have emerged, right? It's in these more B2C or B2B2C style kind of rapid prototyping type things that are less consequential at enterprise scale.
Yep. Let's see. If anybody has any questions for Bob or myself, go ahead and throw them in the comments. We did have one just comment from Adriana here. Oh, it doesn't show up the whole thing, so I'll just read it. If you're on LinkedIn Live, and you'll be able to see her comment there. But basically, with your intro, she agrees with you, Bob, that AI is transformation we're going through. And when you have technologies that are transformative, bubbles are almost inevitable because lots of interest and investments go into it. So that's a feature, not a bug. And yes, most companies are behind, and we're in the early innings, baseball term. And partnerships in particular need automation more than other functions, but curious what others think. So yeah, thank you for your comment there, Audrey.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can debate like the surge in valuations and like, are there companies out there, particularly in the startup space, that are grossly overvalued? Absolutely. This does happen in a phase of these things, but there's also, like the venture firms setting those valuations are kind of engineered to absorb the risk of overvaluing some, because of the minority that turn out to be undervalued when they invest end up kind of paying for the whole thing. And it's very different than the dynamics in the public markets. And there was this thing during the old like 1999, 2000, like which was a proper bubble, right? The internet bubble, where I think the world got ahead of itself in terms of the actual capabilities of the thing that was being promised, right? And there was a lot of the infrastructure spending going on back then, where companies were, deploying out billions, tens of billions of dollars. They were doing things like running, fiber optic cables all over the country underground, because of the expectation that the bandwidth was going to be used by the internet. but
Mm.
the consumption just wasn't there yet. And the supporting infrastructure to allow that consumption to exist wasn't really there yet. And you had a lot of companies that spent a whole lot of money on what the term of art back then was dark fiber, right? Like it ran a lot of fiber optics underground, but no light ever passed through it because the bandwidth wasn't needed because it wasn't being consumed. And you end up with a lot of these, accounting trickery over kind of like what we're seeing now, right? Stuff being like depreciated over a really long time period and it kind of hiding the true cost of all this stuff. But the reality is it took too long for the internet to become what we knew it would, but people thought it would take a year and it took a decade. I would contrast that to what's going on right now with infrastructure investment, where yes, they are spending in some cases trillions of dollars. Yes, we are talking about crazy stuff like launching satellite constellations that are going to be like, data processing, like data centers in space. However, there is not a single chip that is dark right now.
Yeah.
And the costs are going up because the demand is going up. And these businesses that are going from 0 to 100 million so rapidly, guess what? Their gross margins are terrible. And the reason their gross margins are terrible is because they're paying so much of that revenue out to the AI providers who have the chips. And it's the consumption is just off the rails and we cannot keep up with it. So the question is, where's that consumption going? And the reality is it's going to real places. Like people are building AI into in a business context into the way work is getting done, in a consumer context into as like a wholesale replacement for classic internet search and the internet in general. Like this is not a dark fiber situation. These places where all these infrastructure dollars are going, they're going into places where if they can make one more chip, it's going to be at 100% consumption within a second of it going live online. And I'm sure some people will make stupid investments and lose a lot of money. And I'm certain that there are companies valued at hundreds of millions of dollars right now that will go to zero. All those things are true. And yes, they are artifacts of a bubble. But this feels profoundly different to me than 1999, 2000 does, because there is like the business models are there, the consumption is there, the value propositions are being realized. Like, this feels more like when the iPhone came out, right? It's like this transformative platform shift to where and how work gets done and information gets consumed. It's bigger than that, but it's closer to that than it is to 99, 2000.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, obviously, there will be winners and losers, like you say, and there will be consolidation and whatnot. But 99 was mostly losers, where I think this will be mostly winners out there. And it's transformative, right? It feels like as big as the invention of the internet, and it changes our lives in impactful and sometimes scary ways. But it's all just about adapting and really embracing the new overlords of AI. But so in your opinion, what with appreciate that presentation, by the way, and I'm super excited about the Crossbeam MCP and just being able to really get a super brain out there that's trained on my specific data and make it so I can get propensity to buy or smarter intent signals and things like that. What do you think is kind of the next best thing? And maybe that's what kind of is on the roadmap for you guys, but what's the most impactful thing on the partnership side that will really help get people to the next level that they can either start adopting today or prepare to be adopting soon?
Yeah, a lot of it that I think about is about what could we not do before because of bandwidth or attention spans or willingness to care. And that's not just within partnership teams being overextended, but it's also like, we always talk at Crossbeam about this thing that shows up in our survey data, which is the partnership paradox, which is like partner teams are absolutely convinced that they're creating a ton of value. Like it's undeniable. And they claim they have like conclusive data that bears it out. And then we ask them how they're treated inside their organizations. And they're like, oh, nobody thinks we create any value. And by the way, survey sales leaders and they're like, partnerships, get out of here. It's all made up. And it's this very interesting air gap between the two. And I think it has at least partly to do with there's some inherent skepticism just because what it would mean to really, really dig in and understand and process and consume and act upon the data and information and context that's made available from the partner ecosystem would be a ton, because it's not just what's going on in your company. It's what's going on with the 100 or 1,000, or even if it's 10 partner companies that are out there that are working on these deals. It's a lot, and it's a lot to ask of people. And this is why we end up in the partnership world old school account mapping, emailing spreadsheets around and like playing Battleship with our data, because it's all we have the attention span to do and the ability to like process the data to do. Crossbeam is like a quantum leap because it allows you to do at least the Battleship at scale, and you can compare your whole grid to your partner's whole grid. That's great. But then, okay, we've got 24 things overlapping in our grid. The human reality is that we're going to pick 2 of them and work on them. And now with AI, you can pick all 24, right? And I think that leap. It doesn't need to be yet another new product or another new SKU or whatever. It's like just we can finally use all of the stuff that's in front of us, and we can understand it and pinpoint it so that we know we're always taking the next best action and working on the next most important thing, an important account. And that, like the transformation and translation of noise into signal, I think is the thing I'm most excited about. And I'm sure we'll build all kinds of cool features and try to sell them to all of you out there. But the thing behind the thing is that, right? It's signal to noise.
Yeah, I think related to kind of a lot of the hyperscaler marketplace conversations that I had at AWS last week, that was one of the really important things that people wanted to know about is, okay, as I'm gathering all this data on the transaction side, and as you are talking about on the more account mapping side, just getting better visibility, leveraging the amount of data out there. And that's where AI, I think, at least that's where I'm leveraging it the most, is doing that mundane stuff that would take way too long. Like you said, the attention span just wasn't there, or it was overwhelming to try to sift through all that data. Okay, well, assign an agent to go figure all that out for you and surface the highest propensity to buy, or who has the most intent. Okay, they're talking to multiple partners, and now you're going to be able to see that 2 of them have opportunities, and maybe you should be involved in there too. So whatever that may be, just having that level of knowledge that's bringing that together, of those soft signals that were a little quiet. And if you dug in there, yeah, they were there, but man, the AI is going to be able to help you find that a lot better.
Yeah, you're right. It changes the operational differentiation a little bit. Like, we've always had companies that are really good at consuming Crossbeam data, and like the ones that load it into a Snowflake data warehouse and build all kinds of cool algorithms and dashboards and automations around it, like chef's kiss, they kick ass. It's the top 10 or 20% of our users. Yeah. The majority of the users kind of use the UIs and the widgets, and it's hand-to-hand combat, and it's day-to-day very valuable, but there's not like an operational strategic layer that gets built out. I think what AI allows it to do is to bring that other 80% up to the speed of the top 20%. And then you're rebased, and then you have this new question. So now what does it mean to be in the top 20%? And we're going to have those people too, right? That go and push that forward. And it's cool to see that evolution.
Yeah, I think where most people were struggling or not finding enough value is they would use the account mapping as a one-time thing, and it was just a static, okay, we did it. Okay, well, that's only giving you the 1-day snapshot. Great, that was for the 1 day. But I like how you said, as things are changing, every day a new opportunity is closed or brought in. You just being able to see the changes from day to day. A lot of times on our side, we use AI. Oh, a new person came into this role. That's an interesting moment. We need to start reaching out to them. Just seeing those changes in real time is a huge piece that's helpful.
Indeed.
All right. Well, chatted everybody's ears off collectively. Went a little bit over time, but appreciate you sharing your knowledge, Bob. Always good chatting with you. If anybody wants to continue the conversation, we are both on LinkedIn all the time, so reach out to us there.
Chronically Online. We'll see you there.
It's what we do. We live there. That's all right.
All right.
Well,
always a pleasure. Thanks to your whole team.
Pleasure, and happy holidays, and thanks again, Bob, for joining.
Right. Same to you.
All right, see ya.